Hey, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman. Sorry for being a little late, but such is life. So we use this stream to build a Python app and work through the details of how to do that. It's more than just a toy application. It's a real website. This website is called College Conductor. There's a lot you could learn about that and the specifics of that, but that's not terribly the important part of what we do. We really dig into how to do the software around it, how to do deployment, all of that stuff. We've been on a path to make the deployment of College Conductor a lot better. There's a lot of stuff that is currently happening in the way things are working. And I'm trying to simplify that by moving a lot of it to continuous integration to do a ton of the work there, and making the deployment just be take a chunk of code and put it on a server and then basically restart that. To do that, I've been switching web servers. I've been ripping out all sorts of pieces, and we're at this stage now where we have our packaged up app, and it's pretty much ready to go, and it needs to be plugged into Nginx. Nginx is what I use as the load balancer to the website. It's what handles TLS termination, so that does all of the secure layer there, and handles static files. But it passes things off to a web server, a Python web server, to do the actual work of handling the Django stuff. And today it's using MicroWhiskey or uWhiskey, or yeah, that's what people tend to call it. And I'm trying to simplify. MicroWhiskey is kind of, it's very performant, but it's also a bit of a complicated beast. And as I was moving to package things up into this new app container called Shiv, and many of my previous streams have been basically going through the details of how to do that, I decided to switch from uWhiskey to Gunicorn, which has a simpler interface, in my opinion, to work with. So today, what we're going to do is start that process of converting it over. I've proved that Gunicorn works with the app. We've been testing it on my staging site, but we haven't actually done the conversion to connect the load balancer to this Gunicorn app. So what I need to do is make some configuration changes, and that's where we're going to get going. If you want to follow along, I have this issue on GitHub. The whole repository is on GitHub. You're welcome to look at it there and see what steps we're going to cover. And you can use the chat. Please keep it civil if you can. If you can't, I'll kick you out. But that's the way things roll around here. I will put this stuff up on YouTube. I'm on Twitch, obviously. You're watching from Twitch right now. So if you are enjoying what you're seeing, please give me a follow or subscribe on YouTube if that's more your speed when you're catching this later with the recording. All right, so let's look at specifically what we need to do for this issue. There's a bunch of parts here. There's a part where we need to tell the process manager that's running the Python web application server to run our Shiv app instead of MicroWhiskey. So you can see here I'm using a process manager called Supervisor D rather than systemd. This is it's a more Python specific tool. It's frankly a legacy of where I started with the project. I think if I was doing this project again today, I'd probably use systemd, since that seems to be the init daemon that won across Linux repositories, across Linux distributions. But that's what I've got today. So there is a configuration file that we have to update that will swap out which server we want to use. We're going to need to give it the right parameters for like logging and that kind of stuff. And once that is running from Supervisor D, then it'll be time to take that and connect it to Gunicorn. So currently, the load balancer, Nginx, is talking to uWhiskey, and it's talking over a socket file. The socket file is Nginx and uWSGI know how to communicate through this channel, and that is not how the mode that I'm going to apply for gUnicorn. Essentially, what I'm planning to do is change Nginx to use HTTP protocol to actually speak to the gUnicorn web application over HTTP on the local host. That is slightly slower, admittedly, but it should have a fairly simple configuration. And my site is not getting a ton of traffic, so I'm not concerned about the additional latency that comes with making that switch over. So we're going to update Supervisor to use gUnicorn. We're going to update Nginx to talk to gUnicorn. And this, I guess, this middle point is, as we update Supervisor, we're going to need to fiddle around with the gUnicorn settings to make sure that things are looking right. So that's the plan of attack tonight. If we get that far, I'd love to be able to deploy this out and get it onto production and start using this for real. That would be awesome. I don't know if we're going to manage to get all of that done in the next hour to an hour and a half, but we'll see. So let's bring up the code so we can start looking at what we need to do. And we are where we were in a configuration file that we were looking at last time, where we don't need to be. So what we really need to be looking at is the Supervisor D configuration file that's in our deployment tool called it's Ansible configuration is the deployment tool that I use. So we want to find the file, and it's right nearby where we were, one down. Okay, so this is the config file template that gets used to generate the proper configuration file that the server will use. You can see today it has a stanza at the top that says, and this is specific to Supervisor D, that says, here is a program, and we're giving it a name of conductor. It could have been called anything, but that's what I chose to call it. We have the uWSGI binary that's currently running, plus all of the flags that go to that, and that's what we're going to be changing. So a lot of this stuff should change. Or excuse me, actually, I take that back. A lot of this stuff won't change. Sorry, so the exact opposite thing of what I meant to say. The stuff that we'll need to pay attention to are maybe the stop signal and all the flags. These flags aren't going to mean anything for gUnicorn. So it's a question of what do we run next and what goes here. And now that I'm here, I'm realizing that there is a bit of a challenge here. The work that we had done, let me make sure that Vagrant is up. Vagrant is what I use for my staging environment. The work that we did was to make a Shiv app. Shiv app has all of the Django code, it's got all the dependencies, it's got gUnicorn baked into it. So you actually run this file, this PYZ file, as an executable. And it's nice because it makes the deployment of, here's a single thing that I have to put up to my server. The downside of that is that the name of that thing is going to vary for each version. I have to version it somehow, and I can show you once this is up what those look like. So as we SSH into the machine, this is simulating my my production machine. It's an Ubuntu virtual machine here, and we can see what I did with these apps. So we've been messing around with this. Essentially, when we do a deployment, what's going to happen is a file that is formatted kind of like this. It's going to have conductor, and then it's going to have a git SHA. That's what this big long hexadecimal value is here, and then it's going to end with startup PYZ. I could make this so that each time we install a new version, that it's would execute something like serve apps conductor whatever the thing was .pyz. I don't think I want to go that approach. I think what I would rather do is use a symbolic link. And that way I don't have to touch this particular configuration file over and over again. So if I can have a symbolic link that says something like, and call the symlink conductor.pyz. Okay, kind of the simplest version of here's my app, and ditch a bunch of the stuff. I'm not going to delete it all yet because we might want to keep some of the little bits of parameters here. I'm not sure. But imagine that none of the rest of this stuff is here. If I have a symbolic link, the symbolic link then points to the real file that is there. And when Supervisor restarts, it's going to look at the symbolic link, and that symbolic link is going to resolve to the actual file that was added, and it will start up and everything will get going. That's the theory. So in order to do that, we need to create a symbolic link. I don't remember how to do that in Ansible. Let's see if we can do Ansible link file. Let's see what that'll do. So looks like we're going to use the file module again, which we used last time. And one of these must be symbolic or something. Maybe the mode. State. Okay. We don't need a hard link, we just need a symbolic link. So let's see if there's an example below of a symbolic link type. Here's one right here. Yeah. So the source file that we'll have, that's the big long name one. The destination is the conductor.pyz that I had. I'm going to give it the owner of the group, and it's a link. So that should be www data for both owner and group. And that should be what we need to start. So let's do that. So I'm going to bring up the tasks that go along with this Ansible deployment. Those are in our web tasks file. And here we are with working with that app. So we pulled it from, so I guess I need to back up. The system pushes up a new version to S3 as a storage place. That is, and by the system I mean continuous integration. It builds one, pushes one of these things up to S3, and that way deployment can actually pull this thing down and then do whatever we need with it. The next step we did was to set that particular thing to be executable so we could just directly run it. And I think it's right here that I want to have, I want to set the symbolic link. So we'll say the name of this task is going to be link to new app version. And we're going to become yes, because that's going to raise our permissions to root, since we're operating on stuff that is out of the normal permissions of the Ansible account. We're going to use file. We're going to say the state is link this time. And it was src and dest. Yeah. So src is going to be serve apps conductor. It's going to be the thing that's above. I should probably just copy this so I don't mistype anything and change it to src. So that's what we care about there. The dest is to be serve apps conductor.pyz. Okay, and the owner and the group for the symbolic link will be the same as the owner and the group for the file. Okay. And we don't need to save this right now. We'll just leave that as uWhiskey. So, looking at what we have, we just all we've done change so far is to create a new task for Ansible. Let's do a deployment, and we need to make sure that we're working on the virtual environment so that Ansible is available, and say vagrant provision. So what this should do is go through all the steps that we have. Hopefully everything's working. And the outcome should be the file. It might even be a new file. I don't remember if there's a new one up on S3 or not. But it should be a file and a symbolic link sitting next to it that points to the version. Once that's there, we can start playing with Supervisor. And I think rather than trying to get this right in the template immediately, we might just fiddle with the generated template that's in the staging environment. This is a strategy I use pretty often, where I'm in a playground essentially, and I can confirm behavior of something and get something working right, and only then go back and actually apply those changes to the template, so that we don't have to go through this long cycle time of doing a deployment between each of these steps. It's the way that I've found Ansible works best, for me anyway. The step we've done is already finished, so that's cool. I am a little interested to run this a second time to see if the symbolic link is going to complain about already existing. I'm hoping that what it will really just do is just like move a symbolic link if that's the appropriate response. So we don't really need to pay attention to the rest of this, although it's already done, so that's okay. Now, if we look in here, we've got the conductor PYZ symbolic link, and you can tell that it's a link by looking at the L over in that first column of the file listing, and it's pointing to a new version of the container. And we should be able to test this by, what can we test this as? This thing has read, write, execute permissions only for the www.data account. So I'm going to try and run this as the super user to override the permission problems that are there. So let's try running conductor.pyz. I need to do /. Okay, so I forget about this thing every time. We need the proper environment, and I've got some environment variables in a different file so that it's sourced, but it's already promising that it's doing what we want. Nope, what's going on here? Oh, because I'm doing sudo. Okay. Well, let's change to the root user just for a moment, just to confirm. And let's go back to serve apps, and we'll add the environment to the root account for now, and run conductor pyz. Okay. This is convincing me that this is working, so the way that we expect it to. It's starting JUnicorn, it's listening on a port, local port, and yeah, that port is on localhost over a unsecure connection, but that's okay because it's going to be talking to a load balancer, which doesn't need in this scenario to have a cert, and then it gets going. So cool, that's good. So I'm going to stop that, and that gives me the confidence that now in Supervisor, if we change this thing to say serve apps conductor.pyz, it's going to be what we want. So now it's a matter of getting down the right settings. You can notice that in these flags, none of these are pointing to, none of them are pointing to a log file, because they're Supervisor manages logging for you, which is actually a cool feature of Supervisor D. So if you had a log file that has a lot of content, Supervisor D will actually automatically rotate stuff appropriately. So we're going to continue that pattern. And so we need to tell, I don't actually think we need to tell Gunicorn anything about how to log its stuff, because I think it will log to standard out by default. So we definitely aren't going to have a socket anymore that we care about. We already have do we already have the process running? That's a good question. Now I want to check on something. The main. Okay, we did that. So I modified it last time so that it is automatically appending the conductor WSGI app, the thing to run, in there. So we don't have to set that as a command line flag. So the thing we should set is the number of worker processes and the directory from where this is going to run. So it's not going to run in this app path thing anymore. That's a path to the Git clone that's on here, but that's not what we want. So we actually want it to run from server apps is what we care about. And what else do we need minimally? We need Gunicorn processes. I don't know the name of the flag. Workers, maybe? Yeah, okay. So the way both UWSGI and Gunicorn work is they start up a main process. And then after they've started, they will fork some child processes. Those child processes will, because it's a fork, be clones in the original parent process. But the difference is what they bind to. So the main process is actually going to be the thing that binds to the port that's listed for Gunicorn. In the case of our output here, that's port 8000. So it's the thing listening at the main port. So the way this flows and the way it has some level of scaling is if a connection comes in to port 8000, the main process says, okay, I got it, and then hands it off to a worker. And then the worker then does the communication from that point on, which frees up the main process to continue to listen on port 8000 for future requests. And so it's kind of like load balancing in a single tool, which is interesting, but it's just a way to do concurrency, get around some of Python's limitations around concurrency. So we want to use this -- workers flag in our settings. And I said that we're not going to edit the template first, but here we are. Oh well. So say workers is 4. We don't need any of these things because all of these things are specific to UWSGI. So that might be enough. And let's test that out. So the configuration file is put in etc, and there should be a supervisor directory, and there is a conf d directory. And here we can see 2 different configuration files. Don't worry about the celery one right now, but we want to mess with the conductor conf. And actually, before I do that, let's see what's the, yeah, these are root owned files, but we are root right now, so that's okay. So I'm going to just fiddle with this just like we had over in the template for now and see how it goes. So serve apps conductor pyz. We'll change this to worker 4 to kind of mirror what's going on with the processes down here, and delete all of these things and say serve apps as the directory to be in. And then the rest of this stuff is not changing. And you can see, actually I'll highlight this. Notice here that this is what is an indicator that this is a template. So here we've got some Jinja syntax, which is a popular Python templating language that is looping over some environment variables that I want to set. And on the other side, in the actual deployed environment, there's no template syntax anymore. This is the actual output version. So this is the dynamic part that we actually needed to change. And the rest of this is basically static data. Okay, so let's do this. Let's take the service supervisor and we'll say stop. So supervisor is connected like a normal service, and when it starts, it looks for all of its configuration files and says, what programs do I need to run and manage? And it does that based on what exists in that conf directory. So hopefully, if we say supervisor start, now we need to confirm if anything actually ran or if it failed. So we can check a couple of places. Let's check the log file. Oh, interesting. So this is a new error that we're going to have to figure out. What's happening here is this bit up here. Oh, hold on. I want to make sure this is right. I think this is uWSGI up here. Although I don't. There it is. There's the sign. uWSGI. Okay. And it's uWSGI spits out everything that it's doing. But you'll notice this doesn't look like the same log that we saw earlier that was saying GUnicorn is starting up. And the problem, like I'm searching for GUnicorn and it's not here at all. But the reason is because of Shiv itself. So now we're getting into some interesting stuff. Shiv, the way it works is everything's packaged together, but before it runs everything, it extracts itself to a .shiv directory, which you can see here. In this case, it's doing to, whoops, var /.shiv. The reason it does that is because a lot of Python code depends on a variety of things that make it so that it expects a file system to exist. It's possible to run Python code directly in memory. In fact, that's what a new project called PyOxidizer is doing, which is pretty cool. But if you've ever encountered the dunder file attribute, it's a way to like look at where am I, where's the module right now, and it's a pretty common technique. And if you're serving something out of memory, there is no answer for dunder file, and it breaks a lot of code. So Shiv, kind of as a compromise, said, okay, we're not going to try and run everything from in memory because there's a bunch of stuff in the Python ecosystem that makes that annoying. So we're going to extract it in a special directory and then run it from that directory. And it just happens once when a Shiv app is run for the first time. And after that, it's extracted and we'll use that. So the problem is permission error on this .shiv directory. And maybe that directory can't be created by Shiv. I'm not really sure. We're doing debugging this together. So let's bring up another connection to the staging machine so we can have two places and not have to like quit at one and go to the other. So we want to go to var www. Whoops, permission denied. Let's go to var www, and we'll do a long on it. Okay. So this current directory, the group has, the group is www data, that's good. However, the group does not have write permissions, if I'm reading that the way I think it's supposed to. And this might actually be an important thing for like a security perspective. How am I going to say this? If the account that is running the web server has write permissions to the area where the code is that it's running, I think it's possible in like a potential security problem that somebody malicious could find some way to write to that, and many of those bugs have been found. Hey, thanks for the follow, Mr. at Twitch viewer. So many of those many exploitations have been found that is bad news. So if somebody is like writing to that area, and then they write something malicious like, give me all your environment variables, or let me explore your, like, dump out everything in this directory to a certain location, they can essentially learn a lot about you. So as a protection, we don't let that user write stuff. But we have a problem here, and that problem is that because of the way Shiv apps are, they want to write something to a .shiv directory. So I'm trying to think of like the best way to do this, because I don't really want to give them write access. So what I'm not sure of, though, is how do we force Shiv to do the extraction in a safe way and then hand it off to the account, the www data account that is actually going to run the web server. That's what I'm struggling with. So let's go to Shiv's documentation and see if they have any information on this, because maybe there's a way to like pre-extract the directory so that we could run it as part of deployment. And that might actually be a good thing anyway, because if we can pre-extract it, then the startup time for that first run of the web server is a lot faster, which I'm not aiming for zero downtime, but that was one in this area that was like, man, that stinks that in order to use this, I'm going to have to take a hit for every time I do a deploy. It will be slow to restart the app because it has to extract it for the first time. So here's this big note about using a .shiv directory as the cache, and so we need to figure out if we can bootstrap and get this to go right away. So we're going to read a little bit. Sorry, it's the nature of the beast. I don't know if there's like, what could we do? There's possibly like a little clever hack that we can do here. Yeah, I think I've got an idea. The idea is this. So we built a Shiv app, and it actually has two things in it. It's got, if you provide no parameters or the parameters don't look a certain way, it assumes right from the get-go that it is Unicorn. If, however, you take that first parameter and use the word manage, I made it so that it will proxy to Django's manage command. This is going to be important because I'm going to need to be able to do migrations. I'm going to need to do things that require Django specific stuff. And if I've removed all the code except for this one executable thing, then somehow that executable thing has to be able to do the Django work. So here's my thought way to do it. If I can have deployment run a manage command as like effectively like a no-op, but run it as root, and is that going to work? Run that as root, which will force Shiv to do the extraction to, I guess, var dub whatever. Then hopefully when the dub data one wants to run it, it will not have to create these files because they're already going to be extracted. Hope that made sense. There are a lot of ways that this could go wrong, because if we run it as root and Shiv extracts it as root, it might do the extraction like we would hope, but it might, what might it do? It might have them have the wrong group and owner. It might be root. So we could potentially have to like then recursively change the ownership of this as well. So this is not cool. This was not an outcome that I was expecting, but you got to roll with the punches sometimes. Let's keep reading and make sure that I'm not missing anything obvious for how this stuff goes. Because the thing I don't want to do is add the right bit to the www data group, because I think that's going to remove a lot of the protection that I have on the server. So I'd rather have root prepare the way first, and then hand things over to the www data account with its permissions not elevated. So, okay, what does that mean? And one reason I'm confused about this, that I still don't quite get it, is it's trying to put that in var www.shiv. I don't know why it's trying to run there versus a different location. So what's going on? Because my supervisor file, which we can see here, it does not specify var www anywhere. Okay, just a minute. I'm going to check on something, make sure I don't have a path wrong along the way. So let's go to the web playbook. And nope, not there. You want to be. Where do I want to be? Sorry, folks. I'm looking for the variables. There we go. Okay. So in that file that we were just in, this used to say @path. I wanted to make sure that the pathing was right, that I did it right. So it looks like the key point is it does not end in a trailing slash. And so I got that part right. That's good. So that seems to be correct. And I think what this is telling Supervisor, if I remember correctly, is before you do anything, work from the serve apps directory. It's the way to read that. And the reason to do that is because the settings are there. So if we don't run from that area, then this conductor PYZ is not going to see the settings that it's going to need to load up. So that's important. But what I'm missing is where is var dub 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 coming into the equation? It just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe oh, I think I got it. Var dub 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 is probably the home directory for the dub 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 account. But that's it. What file is that in? There is in Etsy a file that lists like all the users, and it's not hosts. Rats. This is a really common file too. It's kind of embarrassing that I can't remember this. The shadow file? It's the file that lists like, here's your shell, here's your home directory. No, it's not the shadow. This is information related to accounts, but this is not helpful. Crap. What is the name of that file? It's in here. Let me look through them. Okay, I'm on the L's in case you're scanning along with me. Password? There it is. Yeah, password. Yep, okay, that confirms what I thought. So the way to read this is, there's a lot of stuff in here. The www data user account. I think this is the group. I don't remember what all of these are. It's a very well-defined file. You can go look up the Etsy password file and see what all of these are. But I know for certain that this var www is representative of the home directory. So like, and you can see these down with like, this is the Vagrant account is the standard login account that you get on a Vagrant machine, and it's /home/Vagrant. So what's happening is Shiv wants to put things in the home directory by default. If we read over in the documentation, it's back up top. It had this note, here we go, of here's where it's going to put it. So maybe we don't want it there. Maybe we want it, and well, maybe we do want to set Shiv root. Okay, well, let's try it, see what happens. We're going to come back to that configuration file, open it up again. And here, for now, I'm going to say Shiv root is equal to serve apps.shiv. So now service, the status of supervisor is probably stopped. We can check on it. Active, running, what? Oh, that's the celery one. Okay. Yeah. that's a different, okay. It didn't fully die because there's other things that run. So we want to stop it. So we say service supervisor stop. And it's stopping celery right now. That's what we're doing. Okay, and let's turn it back on. Start. And then let's look at that file again, the log file. Var log conductor. Okay, same thing, just a different path. So at least we know that we set the variable right, but I think it does confirm my thought that the group does not have write access to that. So pretty much shoots down the possibility of the www data account doing the right extraction here. Okay. So let's go over to serve apps. And like I said, we're the root user. And here's what I want to do. I want to export Shiv root. And I want to synthesize being or having the directory that we just set, which is in this area that we're currently in, to that. So if this works right, it should create a .shiv directory here, and then we can inspect the settings of all the files that get extracted. My speculation, because we're running as root, is that they will be root-owned files, but here we go. So we'll say conductor. Actually, we're going to need the environment. So we'll say conductor, pyz, and all I really want to do is run some command that will force it to extract. So I'm running the manage.py help command, which is effectively nothing. We probably could have run it even without help. It would have run the same thing, I think. But what I'm really interested in is the Shiv directory there. It is. Okay. So now we have, hey, hello, how are you? We're working on weird permission errors. We're trying to get stuff. What's the SaaS? The SaaS is my side project, College Conductor. Are you asking what SaaS itself means, or are you familiar with that term already? Because SaaS is software as a service, which is basically just the industry name. Oh, okay. No, just my specific product. Yeah. So my product it's meant for college admissions people. My wife is a college independent educational consultant is the fancy term. So I was really making this primarily for her. But yeah, we don't need to know the specifics of College Conductor today, as we're deep in the guts of dealing with starting up Unicorn and root accounts and who owns what. So the challenge that we're going to have with changing this stuff is this. When Shiv does the extraction, it correctly does, okay, so this is good to know, that, and this is probably getting to the internals of the Shiv stuff, but it's using the name here. It's stripping off, oh, there it is, there, that's where it ends. So it strips off the extension, the .pyz, but otherwise the first part of this name is a match to the file name. So maybe what that means is if we're trying to change ownership so that the www data account can ultimately run this, then what do we need here? Well, okay, let's test this out in a couple ways. First, I'm going to leave the permissions alone and try to restart. So let's put a couple lines in here just so we have some clearance. So we're going to stop supervisor again, which is stopping celery. I'm going to start it up again. I think this is going to fail in the same way, because this time, well, it didn't even write anything out at that time. What's it doing? No, it didn't fail. Why are you able to read the root owned files there? That'd be awesome if that's all we have to do. Maybe it's because the way Linux file system permissions work, now this is ringing a bell. I think the way Linux file system permissions work is if you own the parent directory, it doesn't matter what the permissions are below it. You can at least like read everything in there, regardless of who owns it. I think that's right, which is why when we tried to start this, it couldn't create this file or open this area. But right now, I mean, I spelled the flag wrong, but at least it looks like we can run it, which is cool. Workers, okay, it is workers. Maybe it needs to have an equal. Ambiguous option, worker. Could match workers. What? I don't understand that. Okay, let's see if adding the equal, well, I didn't add it to the real file. So let's stop the service again. Supervisor, stop. Let's open that configuration file. Oh, I did spell it wrong here. So workers. And we will start up. And now I'm curious if this is just magically working. Oh, would you look at that? That's super cool. So we started Unicorn. It's at port 8000. We told it to use 4 workers, and here they are. Worker with PIDs 6000, 6001, 6002, 6003. And then we're getting some stuff that's coming from the app that we don't need to worry about. Cool. That's really cool. Okay, let's keep going. So what did that mean for us over here? For the template, it means that we got this stuff correct. We need to do a couple things. We need to set an environment variable called Shiv root in the Django env. We'll get to in a second. And that's going to point to serve apps /.shiv. Okay. And we also know that before we can run the app, we need to pre-extract it, which is actually a good thing for us because it warms things up. Because in the Shiv app would be all the PYC files, so it'll just be a fully hydrated app. Although hydrated is not like a good term because it has other meanings in JavaScript. So we're at our variables here, and we want to say Shiv root. Convenient that we happen to be here. And serve apps.shiv. Okay. So I think that's all of that business. And we're going to save that. I think that's everything we want there. And what's next? We need to go back to our tasks, which is over here. And we need to now execute as root the manage command. Essentially, we want to be able to take our new thing, the PYZ, and run manage, which is just going to extract it. And you could see, well, maybe you couldn't. I don't know how the lag is on streaming. When I ran conductor.pyz manage again just now, it was really fast. Not like mind-bendingly fast because this is Python, but it was fast. The first time I ran it and it had to do all the extraction, there was a noticeable lag of a few seconds before we ran it. And so what I don't want to happen is have that lag on deployment, just because potential of like some users getting requests that don't get served in a timely manner. So we're going to go back to our task. And after we've linked to the new version, we want to, let's say, what should I call this? The word that keeps jumping into my mind is prime the app. Yeah. So we need an ability to run a specific app or this specific command, and I don't remember in Ansible if that's shell or something else. Because there's another one as well. It's almost, so there's also a command module, but that doesn't use the shell. But I think we need the shell because we need some environment variables. Is the environment one of the options? Come on. If we want to change the directory to a certain directory, we want, well, give me some examples down here. The way you run shell is you basically run a shell command right there. And, well, shoot. I don't see how to like export environment variables, which we might need. Hey, Anthony, welcome. I am getting close. I'm like this close to hooking in this Shiv app thing to Nginx, basically, is where we're at. But we're hitting permission problems. I've been running into permission problems the last couple of weeks. And right now, okay, so it can take, is that just not documented? What the heck? Right now I'm trying to deal with the fact that the way Shiv apps work is they want to extract to a directory before they run for the first time. And because the www data user doesn't have write permissions, it can't actually do the extraction when it wants to run the Shiv app. So yeah, that's a problem. So my plan is to have the root user actually do that initially. It tries to write, it wants to write to home, like, what is it? The default is home.shiv. Whoops, except that should be .shiv. Whoops. Okay, Twitch thinks that's a command. Okay, here you go, Twitch. All right, there it is. So I'm using an environment variable to write to a different location already because I don't want to write to var www. I want to write to my own path, which is this serve apps directory. So that's one thing. So I need to provide an environment to do that. And yeah. So the thing I want to run is serve apps conductor pyz manage, because I bundled manage.py into my Shiv app as well. So if I run this, it will do all the extraction, which is a no-op command to do this manage thing. And yeah, then when it actually starts up the process, the stuff should be extracted and the www data account won't complain. That's the theory. So somebody over here says you can add environment variables. Yeah, I'm going to do Shiv root, and I'm going to pass it that. That's exactly what I'm doing. So I've got a different file. I defined that so that it will go in this Django environment. So there it is. So it's going to use that in the future, but I have to like put it there first because it can't do the extraction unless you're the root account. It's kind of weird, but hey, it's okay. I wonder if this is like a global thing and they don't feel like documenting it. Whatever. Let's see if it works. So the environment is going to be, I've used this before. I know I have. Yeah, okay. So my memory just doesn't have everything I need. So it looks like I can just pass in Django env, which is what I want, as the minimal settings to run the Django stuff, and that should do it. Let me, yeah, okay, cool. And I'll put more information. I'm gonna forget why I did this. To pre-extract the Shiv content, or let's say pre-extract to the Shiv root area. Okay. So to simulate this properly, I'm going to destroy this Shiv directory that's in here. And this is a virtual machine, so I don't really care. And when we do a deployment again, it will also test out if Ansible plays nice with the symlinks, which would be good. So here's what we got going. I've added Shiv root so that it's now pointing at this new location where we have it. We're symlinking to the Shiv or the specific version to this file, which I'm hoping will update each time. I think it should, unless there needs to be like some force attribute, which I'm not sure. And it's going to run the pre-extraction so that the environment will be ready, so that when Supervisor wants to start it up, it won't run into a permission error. And got an extra space in there. So vagrant provision. Let's see how I did. Oops. Not working in the virtual environment. Thankfully, this is not too long of a process. And a lot of this will go away. That's what I'm excited about. That's the whole point of this whole thing, is to kill off a lot of these tasks to make this even shorter and safer. Okay, the link was already right. Ah, crap. No module named settings. Oh, I didn't use change_dir. So I was trying to just run it from wherever the heck it was. So, right, there's a change_dir option, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I'll put that here to be where the settings are. Conventionally, do they want the trailing slash? Never know if they care about these things. Oh, and I had the format wrong anyway. It's an args thing. Or is that new? To use args? Okay. Well, they want the slash. That's fine. So the fact that the symlink didn't fail was encouraging when it was listed that linking step. I haven't pulled a new version though, so I'm not fully confident that that task is correct, because I'll only be really confident when I pull a new version from S3 and actually change the symlink. Well, we can simulate that too. We can just point at a different thing. Sweet. Okay, so the rest of this we don't really care about. Yeah, that's Ansible for you, mangling stack traces into a single line since 2012 or whenever they started. So there's the Shiv directory newly created from the deploy. That's cool. We've got, okay, we can actually do the simulation of the link change too. So if I want to ln minus s, and it's the thing, what's the order? The thing I think it's this. Yeah, that's what I was afraid of. Okay, maybe Ansible's smarter than that and does a force on it. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to remove that. Let's go back and read that file module. Okay, well, the documentation does seem to hint that it will just do the right thing. It's either going to create it or change it. So I'm going to remove the symlink and create a new one locally to test this out. And we're going to say conductor, the old version, that's not the one. And we're going to just manually link it here. Make sure I got the right order, right direction. I did. So I'm going to do another deploy just to confirm that other bit of behavior. I'm kind of testing two things at once, but I'm not running the provision command very often. I'm excited. Once this is done, I'll get to rip out uWhiskey. I'll get to rip out a lot of stuff eventually, but uWhiskey is the initial thing to remove. I don't have to install that from Ubuntu anymore. Don't have to deal with all of its weird settings. So that'll be cool. Yeah, great. It changed it. Let's confirm that it has changed. It's changed to the new path, and they even did it better than I did. They have a full path specified. Cool. That's what I want. Okay, so since this is pre-extracted. Now, well, maybe I should just let this finish so that I don't have Supervisor mysteriously start on me in ways that I don't expect. Yeah, this was gonna throw a wrench in things. So we can look at var log conductor, and yeah, there it is. One thing I still need to resolve is with logging. Sometimes something I've seen about GUnicorn, and I'm not sure why it does this, is when you write to standard out, it doesn't like flush the logs right away. And I've seen that when I'm doing like development, local development, and I've used Python unbuffered as a environment variable. I think that's the name of it. But that seems like a very heavy sledgehammer to deal with that. It's a Python 3 thing. Do you know if that's like, is there a way to not use that environment variable, or? Yeah, so you can flush it, but I'm wondering about GUnicorn, if they have figured out a way to like flush without waiting on Python, or without specifying that unbuffered thing. I just don't know the negative side effects of using unbuffered for everything just to get logging going for GUnicorn. That's what I'm not sure about. Okay. All right. Well, as I get there to hook this up with Nginx, we'll find out what kind of behavior it has, if it's good or bad. Got it. Cool. Thanks. So what is left? We now have the Shiv app connected to Supervisor. In its current state, if I commit this and deploy it, I've broken my site because Nginx is still looking to talk to uWhiskey. So now we're at a stage. Actually, let's go back to the GitHub issue and see what we've done. So we set the GUnicorn configuration, which we didn't. I don't care to change the port. That doesn't matter. I'm using the default logging to log to standard out. The only thing that we did set was the number of workers, and I kept that the same as I had for uWhiskey. We just updated the supervisor D config to point at Shiv, and then we had to do that extra bit to deal with the permission error of it writing out. So the next thing that we have to do, and the final thing that we have to do in order to test this like end to end, is to update the Nginx config to use GUnicorn rather than uWhiskey. And so that's a template. It's over here. Should be. No, it's in the load balancer. Yeah. Right, here it is. So this is some port forwarding. Let's close this other thing. We don't need it right now. This is the section we care about. The important bit is down here, the location slash. So right now it's these two things. It's talking over to uWhiskey over the socket, and it's including these uWhiskey params. And I need to change this to GUnicorn. And honestly, I've never done this before at this stage. I've configured uWhiskey before, clearly, but I've never pointed Nginx to a GUnicorn running over HTTP. I'm sure this is not difficult since it's going to be communicating with HTTP, but I just don't know the settings off the top of my head. So Nginx Unicorn, let's see what we got. Makes sense that they have deployment here, specifically in the Unicorn docs. They're doing quite a bit more in here than we may care about. So I'm going to ignore a fair amount of that, assuming that a lot of my stuff is already working. And it looks like they're using a try files. Okay. And then this proxy to app thing. All right. Those are just variables, which we can do that. And proxy paths is probably the one that we actually need. Okay, that doesn't look too bad. So let's first start removing the socket stuff. There's a uWSGI socket. There's these uWSGI params, which we also don't need. Those are included here. So we don't need that. And we don't need that file anymore. Let's search for uWSGI. See if there's any other references to it. So there's a reference to it in the template. So this is gone. And then we're down to this guy. So what else is left that's still referring to uWSGI? Not much. We have that one line in the template file, and then the stuff to install it, which we can delete. Cool. Let's get rid of it. And is there no other reference to that socket file? Oh, I already got rid of it when I changed Supervisor D. That was referencing the socket file, and now I don't need to do that. All right, so we're gonna do try files there, and then I'm going to pull these. Wow, that whole section. Yeah. I don't care about their comment. So this was serving over localhost on port 8000. So that's what as far as I know, that's what I'm going to put here. And yeah, maybe that's it. So, moment of truth. We're going to come over to this again, and we're going to provision. And we're going to see if Nginx succeeds or fails. And then we can finally test out from the browser my staging site. a lot of work to get this far. Surprising amount to get this. I'm in the process of writing up a big post about Shiv apps and some of the things that I've learned along the way. I should probably comment on quite a few of these permission errors and things that people are going to encounter. But it's been fun. Yeah, all of this JavaScript's going to go away eventually, so none of that build stuff will be there. It'll be nice. Almost done. Hey, cool. Restarted Nginx. So let's try going to conductor test. Oh, nice. That was a success. Yeah, cool. Now let's go look at the logs and see if the log is showing up that actually shows the access. Nope. Well, so close. This is where we might do that Python unbuffered thing. Because I would expect, like, this is like diagnostic information from errors that happened. I know what this is. I just need to upgrade PyRollbar. They fixed this, and those will all go away. But yeah, let's look at the vim Nginx access log. Maybe I'm getting things wrong. Maybe the Unicorn stuff, I don't really care about this. It's all in the Nginx log. As long as it's writing out error information, which it appeared to be doing, then the rest of this should be fine. And I know that the static files are definitely the static files. Those are coming from Nginx. They're serving that. That hasn't changed. But the accounts login, the accounts login post, the get on the app route, those are all things that are coming from Unicorn. Super cool. So where does that leave us? I think that leaves us ready to like commit this as done. Let's check on the diff, see what, like, we can review what we did here. So I set Shiv root so that it will put the Shiv extracted Shiv apps in a different location. That was pretty easy to do. We removed some uWSGI param thing from the load balancer. That was the only place that uWSGI did anything in those tasks. We changed the Nginx config pretty easily. I liked how quick that went. That was nice. Thank you, Unicorn people, for making good, simple docs for that. Deleted a template file. Deleted installation of uWSGI. Added our symlink so that that should always point to the latest and greatest. Added this special task to extract the stuff to the Shiv directory, and changed Supervisor from all of that configuration to that, which I think is awesome. This is one of the reasons that I'm excited about using Unicorn, is that, yeah, there's probably stuff that I might need to configure in the future, but they just tend to have standard defaults. And I didn't have to monkey with all of this stuff. This is all stuff I had to figure out. Yeah. So let's add that and commit it. Switch from whiskey to unicorn. And this fixes 381. So I think that's going to bring us pretty close to the end for this evening. Let's take a look ahead at what I'm planning to do next. I don't even remember. I had a milestone for all of this stuff, and we're getting closer to some of these pieces, but we're not there yet. The pieces that, what can we do next? So and there's still some stuff that we need to add, like that will be important. For example, like the git clone removal, that's like the last thing we can do, because all of these things depend on stuff that's in the clone in order to actually do their thing. So I'm ready. I guess if we're running from the Shiv app, we're pretty close to done with the virtual environment that gets installed there. So, but not quite, because there's another issue that comes to mind. So anytime we use manage in Ansible, manage.py, or Django manage, I think is the name of the command, we need to switch that to use the Shiv app. So here it is. It's in this seed job. Well, that's frustrating. I don't know that. That's for development. I think that was a special one-off thing that I made. I might just leave that broken because I don't really care about it right now. But coming over here to the web stuff, the actual stuff that matters for the real deployment of a site, we have the use of manage to do the database migration. And there's a couple other spots that I use it here. I use it to make a sitemap. So College Connector has a ton of like colleges, and I made sort of I took every entry into that list of colleges and made this gigantic sitemap so that Google can scan it all and know which pages are, because I don't link directly to them unless you're logged in and able to search. But I have some public pages that are exposed that show off some information about the school, kind of as a teaser for what people might want to use it, and I want Google to scan that stuff. So that's what that sitemap is doing. And then I have this collect static to do the static file asset collection. Ultimately, this should move to continuous integration, so this should come out. So the next things to do is probably to switch these over to use the Shiv app. And then rather than switch this over, because I'm going to remove this eventually anyway, we'll move on to the task to do all of the static asset building in CI. So, but I do need a reminder to move Django migrate Ansible task to Shiv version. So we're going to probably call shell again using the Shiv app like we did previously tonight. Maybe there might even be clever ways to tell the Django manage command from Ansible to use our thing as the what am I trying to say? To use that as the file to execute from. I don't know. We'll see. So the reason we have to do this is because we need to get away from using the clone that's on the system. Okay. So maybe that's where we'll start next time. and then start getting into static assets is going to be fun because we've got npm along the way so we have to this is interesting because the way I have this set up right now is npm generates the JavaScript stuff, but then I'm using the Django manifest static files plugin to actually put MD5 SHAs on those files. So there's a interesting dance that we're going to have to do on CI that I'm able to do in Ansible pretty easily because it's on the server, but because of Circle and the way it works, and the fact that Python is one container image and JavaScript is a different container image, we're going to have to like cache stuff around so that we can, and then like bring it back and run stuff on those files. It's going to be fascinating how it works out. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I will post the recording of this on YouTube if you want to refer back to anything I did. I will be streaming next week. Yep, I'll be around. So that's July the 24th. 07. I'm not sure what that means, Anthony. I'm not cool enough, not enough, not elite enough. If you enjoyed this and want to follow me on Twitch, I'd totally appreciate that. So you'll know when I'm streaming again. I do stream on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern time pretty regularly. So if you just remember that, you can catch me then. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining in, and I will see you next time. Take care.